Okay, cool.
Okay, this is my sister Naomi. She's a junior at McDonald right now. So how many of you are athletes, coaches, or we all athletes or coaches here? Everybody, for the most part? Okay, so obviously the current state that we're in right now with the way schools are and the way sports are is not ideal. I'm sure whether you're an athlete or a coach, you had lots of plans for this season, especially if you are in a spring sport. So I really do feel for you that are, spring sport athletes, spring sport coaches, especially seniors, because, you're going to miss your final season, which is awful and it's sad. But the first verse that I want to start out with today is Proverbs 16:9. Because you put so much timing and planning and work into your sports because you love them. And then when something like this happens that is completely out of all of our control, it's very upsetting. So just keep in mind that in his mind, a man plans his course, but it's the Lord that directs his steps. So even though we've made all these plans, if the Lord decided that for whatever reason we're not able to complete them, that's not up to us. This season of life for any of us is not what it's expected. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing, even though it's not what we expected. So right now, whether you're at the collegiate level like Alex and I are, or if you're at the high school level, coaching, an athlete, whatever frame of reference you're coming at right now, we're not able to compete, unfortunately, which is upsetting. But I think sports is a great parallel to just life in general. So even though we can't compete right now, there's still things that we can focus on through sports that can help get us through this difficult time. So today I mainly want to focus on Matthew chapter 6. This is probably one of my favorite chapters of the Bible. There's just so much good wisdom in it. But I'm really going to focus on verses 19 through 21, verses 33 and 34, and then go back to 9 through 13. So I'll read those all as I'm coming. That's just kind of like the game plan for what I want to focus on. So the first one I want to start with is Matthew 6, 19 to 21, if you guys have your Bibles and want to flip there. And then I'll read it. Let everybody get there. So this one reads, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and decay destroy, and thieves break in and steal. But store up treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor decay destroys, nor thieves break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there also will your heart be." So what I think of with this when I think of sports is working for a medal or an award. And this isn't that's not a bad thing. Everybody wants to win and everybody wants to be successful. And I don't want to take away from that. That's a great and wonderful thing. But when that's your sole focus of competing in your sport is just to win the race or to win the game or the competition, then you miss out on so much more that the sport has to offer you. I'm a senior at YSU now, and I run track and field. So my season was cut short, a lot shorter than I expected it to be. But at the end of the day, the things that I'm going to remember most about track aren't going to be the races I won or the medals I won. It's going to be the friendships and the relationships that I made during those years. So I've been running track since I was like 4 years old, 6 years old, all through junior high, all through high school, all through college. And definitely my favorite memories, the things that I'm going to remember the most, are the friendships that I made throughout those years. Winning was great whenever we won, thank God that we did. I'm blessed to be able to have, Naomi jokes, we have like this hall of Eva at my house where all my medals from high school are sitting, and we have like a picture from when we won state as a team. And I'm, very proud of those things, but they wouldn't mean as much to me as they do if it wasn't for the relationships with the people that I had. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, just like this verse says, where moss decay and destroy, like my medals are going to tarnish one day. I've been out of high school for like 4 years now, and they're already all dusty and gross, and I need to clean them. But after they're done on my trophy case, they're probably going to end up in a box in my basement, and I'm never going to look at them again unless, I have kids and I'm like, okay, look what mommy won 15 years ago. But it's going to be so much more important, all of the relationships that I formed with people, all the friends that I've made. Because when I have a problem, am I going to go look at my medal, or am I going to go text my friend to help me? So sometimes we don't think in the now that, we can't compete anymore. So we think that everything's shot, that we can't get medals or anything, and our season's going to be a waste. But you still have those bonds, you still have those friendships with people. And in the end, that's going to be more important than any medal that you ever win. So just like in life, I think this is a great parallel, using just like focusing on sports for medals. It can be just like focusing on life for successes. So success isn't a bad thing by any means. You know, you want to be successful. Everybody wants to be successful in their own way. You want to have a nice house and lots of money, and that's not a bad thing. But when that's your main focus over your relationships with other people, but most importantly, your relationship with Jesus, that's when we need to kind of rearrange our priorities a little bit. So just like in this time where we can't compete for medals, you know, this time that we're in right now, we may not be able to do the things to make us more successful, but now is such a great time to focus on our relationship with others, our relationship with Jesus, most importantly, because even though medals will tarnish, or, you know, sometimes even friendships aren't there forever, our relationship with Jesus will always be there, and he will always be our constant. There's nothing that's ever going to separate us from Jesus. So I have another quote that I'd kind of like to talk about before we get back into Matthew 6, and it's by Francis Chan, and the quote goes, "Our greatest fear should not be of failure, but of succeeding at things in life that don't really matter." So I feel like that's the perfect example for if, you know, you're successful and you have all this money and the nicest house ever, but you don't have that relationship with Jesus, you're never going to really be fulfilled. So it's not that you were a failure, because obviously you weren't. You just succeeded at some of the things that don't matter as much as your relationship with Jesus does. And the same thing with athletics. If all we focus on is winning and competing and doing well, then you're going to miss out on so many other things that come along with that. So the next verse that I want to go to is Matthew 6, again, verses 33 and 34. So if we have Bibles, I'll let everybody flip there, and then I'll read it. So these verses read, "But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all those things that will be given to you besides. Do not worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Sufficient for a day is its own evil." So this kind of ties back to what I was saying before, that it's not bad to seek all those successful things, but when you put those above your seeking a relationship with Jesus, that's where it can be a little messed up. But also, I want to hit verse 34 as well. Sufficient of, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will take care of itself. Sufficient for a day is its own evil. So if we think about all of the, you know, this doesn't say this is focusing on one day. Because if you think about it, there's a million things that could go wrong today, like just today. We don't even have to think about tomorrow or next week or next month or next year. We could just think about everything that could go wrong today, and we would sit in our house and never do anything ever. So, but God doesn't want us to live like that. He wants us to love and embrace each other each and every day. So when we go back, I'm going to kind of jump around just for a second. We're going to go back to verses 19 through 13, which is the Our Father. That's always been a prayer that has been really important in our life. It was one of my grandpa's favorite prayers, so it always holds a special place in our heart. But I really want to focus on verse 11, and it says, "Give us this day our daily bread." So he doesn't say this week, he doesn't say, you know, month, he doesn't say year, he says daily bread. And I think that's so important, and that really ties back in with verses 33 and 34, where there's enough that can go wrong today. So don't worry about asking God for strength for next week or for next month or next year. Just ask him to give you enough strength to overcome today and get through today. And then if you can get through today, then ask him to give you more strength to get through tomorrow. But don't worry about that until you're at tomorrow. And then same thing with next week and next month. And that's how we're going to get through things. That's how we're going to get through not being able to compete in sports. That's how we're going to get through not being able to have face-to-face interaction for the next however long we're in this pandemic. That's how we're ultimately going to get through this pandemic, is just day by day by day. And any other obstacles that life throws us, that's how we're going to get through it. Just asking God to give us the strength for today. And that's all I have.